I must say, you speak surprisingly good English, Sadie said.
How do you know I am speaking English and you are not speaking Alexandrian Greek? He said, smiling. I am just joking, my dear, he chuckled.
I remember Carter saying how that language was like millennia old, Sadie said. No offense, but you can't possibly be that old, can you?
Ah, but I am exactly 2 millennia old, my dear, he answered.
What? Come on, no one can live that long, said Sadie.
I promise you I am not lying, my dear, he said. I was there when Egypt lost to the Romans and the house was forced underground. Many of our most powerful secrets were lost, including the spells my master used to extend my life.
Then Sadie asked about the image with Set chasing Isis. He told her that Isis did eventually manage to escape, and later on she gave birth to her son Horus. Later in life, Horus got revenge on Set, and Osiris was resurrected. Then Sadie said, what I don't understand is, from what Carter told me, those gods were all brothers and sisters. You know, the children of Nut and Geb. Which story is true? Iskander assured her that both stories were true, and it just depended on what sort of host the gods took on.
This can be confusing sometimes for those who do not know the full nature of gods, he said. You see, gods have great power, but only humans truly possess creativity. Therefore, the gods cannot walk this earth very long without host. You see, the first time the gods walked the earth, they were siblings simply because their hosts were siblings. But humans can only live for so long, so they had to move on. In a later lifetime, they found new hosts who were husband and wife and had a child together. You see how that works?
I think so, said Sadie. It is a bit confusing and kind of gross when you think about it.
Gods really don't think of relationships the same as humans, Iskander said. They look at us like a change of clothes, you might say, or pets.
But that doesn't explain why this hosting thing is bad, Sadie said.
The gods have agendas much different from humans. They can overpower their hosts, sometimes enough to burn them out and shatter their minds. It could explain why rulers of Egypt die so young, like King Tut or Cleopatra. In the old days, students could study the path of many of the gods, learn to channel their power, or even call them for their help. Some even tried to purposely become their host. But many destroyed themselves trying. When Egypt fell to the Romans, it became clear that no human can master a god's power except
the blood of the pharaohs, Sadie guessed.
Iskander smiled. You are quite a remarkable student, just like your mother.
You knew her? Sadie asked, shockingly.
She was an old student of mine, as well as your father. She had the gift of divination, the power to see the future, and she was the first in centuries. She saw things that made her seek advice from unconventional places that even I have found questionable.
What do you mean? Sadie asked.
Well, my point is, my dear, is that you and your brother have a hard path ahead of you, and he will need your guidance. And when the time comes, you will also require Zia's help. She is my best student and very wise. She will have quite a role to play. This I am certain of. For now, you should get some rest, my dear, and I sense that I, too, can rest at last.
He gently tapped her on the head with his staff, and Sadie felt dizzy and weak. She couldn't remember going back to bed, but the next morning she had been woken up with a big splash. Zia dumped a bucket of ice-cold water on Sadie's bed. "What the bloody heck was that for?" she asked furiously. "To cleanse you," Zia said, "to prepare you for training." It took her a moment to notice that they were the only ones in the room. The other students probably left to start the day and go on ahead for lessons. "Can I at least get some breakfast first?" she asked. "We'll see," Zia said, "if you survive first." She decided more complaints would just get her nowhere, so, after getting a quick cup of water, she followed her to another room where Carter was waiting for them. He seemed to frown in Zia's direction, but before Sadie could ask, Zia leaned in front of her with a paintbrush. "Time to prepare your tattoo," Zia said. "Really?" Sadie asked. "On your tongue," said Zia. No thank you?" "It's supposed to help you speak magic clearly," Zia explained. "Even one slight mistake with a spell, and, let me guess, will die," Sadie guessed. So, she let Zia proceed. When the ink touched Sadie's tongue, it felt worse than she expected. She felt as if she had just licked a hot, sticky tire covered in gasoline. "Forget breakfast. I just lost my appetite," she said. After they got their markings done, Carter got his sword back as well as his dad's magic bag, and was given his own wand. Sadie also received a wand of her own, as well as her own magic kit. Then, Zia opened a portal to what looked like an ancient Egyptian courtyard in the middle of nowhere. "Hey, this is the Temple of Luxor," Carter said. He pointed to the large entrance with the giant pharaoh statues. There was also an obelisk on one side. It seemed like there were two of them before, but now the second one was missing. "The missing one's in Paris, you know," he told Sadie. "I wish I were in Paris right now," Sadie muttered. "Anyway, I thought they were in New York and London." "That's a different pair," Carter said. As they kept walking, they thought there could be tourists around, but Zia assured them that her masters made special arrangements so no one would bother them. "It's a good place for magicians to come train in combat," Zia said. "Even after all this time, it is still very full of powerful magic." She directed Carter and Sadie to stand 10 meters apart from each other. "Wait, we're gonna duel each other? What if we get hurt?" Sadie asked. "We'll start simple," Zia said. "Let's just see who knocks the other down first." "But we haven't been trained yet," said Sadie. "This is not school," Zia said. "One cannot learn magic from sitting at a desk and taking notes. You can only learn magic by simply doing magic. Just use whatever you have available. Now, begin." The siblings looked at one another. Then Sadie pulled out something that shouldn't have fit in her small bag, a staff. Then she thought of the word, fire. A huge current of fire shot out from her staff and into Carter's direction, and then Carter deflected the flame, not just with his blade, but surrounding Carter's body was a glowing bird-headed avatar made of cosmic energy, protecting him from the flames. The flames broke apart, and the avatar vanished. The siblings just stared at each other, wondering if it was a mirage from the heat. "Did that really just happen?" Sadie wondered. They just noticed that Zia was so shocked her staff was in the sand. It can't be," Zia said. "You summoned the falcon. You two really are hosting gods." "Again with the hosting?" Sadie asked. "Really?" "Don't you understand?" Zia asked. "Didn't you wonder why Desjardins was so suspicious of you two? The chief lector will expect me to turn you in, and I will have to obey, and you will be..." "What?" Carter asked. "Executed? But we've done nothing wrong. Look, you saw what happened at the museum. We're not the problem, Set is." "You both have broken the ancient laws of the house," Zia said. "Zia, wait," Sadie said. "Look, I spoke with Iskandar last night. He told me that Carter and I have a hard path ahead of us. He also said that when the time comes, we would need your help specifically, and that you had a big role to play too." Zia's entire body was clenching, but then she relaxed and said, "Go. Use the obelisk at the front." "What?" "Use it to make a portal and get out of here. They should be on their way by now to take you away. The demon days begin at sundown. Portals will stop working by then. You must get to as close to Set as possible before that happens." "Come with us," Carter begged. "I cannot betray the house," said Zia. "Go now, before it's too late." Sadie grabbed her brother, and they ran for the obelisk. The problem was, they still had no idea how to make a portal. They didn't even get the chance to figure it out both times they tried back in New York. If anything, portal making should have been their first lesson. Wait, Carter, you said the other obelisk is in Paris, right? Sadie asked him. Well, yeah, so? Carter asked. Sadie tried raising her hands with her staff and wand and said, Paris! I'd like to go to Paris. 2 tickets. First class would be nice. Please? The obelisk glowed purple, and a sand tunnel swirled right in front of them. Just then, across the row of sphinxes, another portal appeared, and out walked Desjardins. But the strange part was that Desjardins was carrying Iskandar's same staff and was wearing his same leopard cloak. Why was he wearing the Chief Lector's clothes? Before Carter could say anything, Sadie grabbed him and they jumped through the portal, and it closed behind them just in time. When they came out the other side, they were standing in Place de la Concorde. Behind them, they heard a small meow and turned around to find a familiar cat. The cat transformed once again into their old cat goddess friend, Bast. Miss me? She asked. They moved their conversation down the street to the nearby park. Bast assured them that Desjardins and the others wouldn't look for them here, and they would assume they would have gone anywhere else. They might assume you would have been foolish to flee to Desjardins' hometown, she continued. It took them a moment to remember that Desjardins was French, and it sort of made sense. Also, your amulets not only protect you from physical harm, but they also cloak you from your enemies, Bast continued. As for how I found you, well, I can find Sadie anywhere due to my promise to your father. How did you get past the scorpions? Sadie asked. She explained how she held off Circuit as long as she could and eventually found the right time to slip into the duat again. Yes, I may not be good with portals, she continued, but there are other ways in and out of the duat. It has many different regions and layers, the Abyss, the River of Night, the Land of the Dead, the Land of Demons, etc. When opening a portal, you pass through the duat to connect one part of the mortal world to another. What if you'd been killed? Carter asked. Well, I would have been vanquished to the duat, and it would have taken me centuries to regenerate before I could ever return to the mortal world again. I am a creature of the duat, after all. Oh, by the way, I do apologize 1,000 times if I may have taken a bit long to catch up to you, but it got so much harder when the house had beaten me to you and kidnapped you. Well, I wouldn't say they kidnapped us exactly, said Carter. Really, Carter? How long did you stay there before they decided to execute you? Bast asked. About a day. They've gotten much friendlier in the last century. They used to blast godlings in the first few minutes. Wait, Carter said. What did you call us? Godlings, Sadie said. That's what we are, aren't we? That's why Zia thought we were hosting gods, why I already knew about Blood of the Pharaohs, and why they wanted to kill us. What? No way, Carter said. I think I'd know if I were... Then he thought about the voice in his head. Carter thought it was just a coincidence before. But now that he thought of it, just minutes ago he was suddenly able to fight with a sword and summon magic armor. Those were not things he practiced in homeschool. He thought about how his dad released the 5 gods when he destroyed the Rosetta Stone. If Osiris had chosen Dad, then where were the other 4? Then he remembered how Amos told them how their family had a long history with the gods. Sadie mentioned how she and Iskander were discussing how humans can't perfectly host gods unless they were what they called Blood of the Pharaohs. Carter thought about their amulets. Sadie's was the Knot of Isis, and his, of course, was the Eye of Horus. Could that have really been more than just a big coincidence? Then he thought about the voice in his head again. A voice that was definitely not his. He was afraid to try, but then he said to himself, hello? Horace?
Well, well, a strong voice said. It's about time we've made introductions. Hello, Carter Kane. Yes, it is I, Horace, the Prince of the Skies.
Ah! Somebody call an exorcist! There's a bird man in my head! Carter panicked.